We're on, Mayor.
Call the Howell Township Council Workshop Meeting for October 2nd, 2007 to order. Read the appropriate statement.
Yes, sir. Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice the holding of this workshop meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on January 1st, 2007, and by the faxing of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on January 1st, 2007, and by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on January 1st, 2007. The public will be allowed to attend this meeting and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. Public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of the Public Laws of 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 17:27. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room to the rear, they are to immediate left and immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room at the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Roll call, Mrs. Dalton.
Here.
Mr. Howell.
Here.
Mrs. Showmaker.
She's not here at the moment.
Mr. Walsh.
He's definitely here.
Mayor DeBella.
Mayor DeBella contacted me saying that he would be not here. He's caught on business out of town.
I believe we have reason to go into executive session. Is that true, Ms. Schlegel?
Yes, it is. Personnel issues.
Personnel issues.
And the attorney's going to report on litigation.
Litigation.
Personnel issues and litigation.
Would you like
Okay.
to read the resolution, sir?
Would you please?
Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of the New Jersey Revised Statutes require that the public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting. And whereas the Township Council of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10:4-12, namely personnel matters and litigation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of this meeting and that the Township Council will reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session and the time and the circumstances under which a discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public and not be determined at this time. Need a motion and second.
So moved.
Second. For the benefit of the public, it's approximately 6:45. We'll return out of executive session approximately 7:30.
Roll call, Mrs. Dalton.
Yes.
Mr. Howell.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is the October 2nd, 2007 Howell Township Council Workshop Meeting. We just came out of executive session. Would you all please stand for a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you all remain standing for a moment, please? And pray for those that are serving our country overseas, that they only come home safely to their families. Mr. Maggot, please. We'll hold off on reports to township officials. We have an award presentation and a proclamation to read. Would the council please join me in the front, please? Dr. Vince and Vance Moss to please come up. I had the pleasure of meeting these two gentlemen at the grand opening of their new medical center here in Howell Township about 2 months ago. Very interesting young men. They were recruited by St. Barnabas, and they're out of Paul Kimball Medical Center now. And Vince is the good-looking one, right?
About the camera.
Now, Vince and Vance just received an award not too long ago over in New York for the Ellis Island Medical Medal of Honor at a ceremony in Ellis Island. They went over to Afghanistan for 3-4 months, doing a lot of their work over there, trying to help people suffering and soldiers over there. And Township of Howell would just like to recognize them and wish them well in their new careers here in Howell Township. And this is a certificate. It's a humanitarian award to Doctors Vance and Vince Moss for outstanding and dedicated service to our country and the people of Afghanistan. The people of Howell Township recognize your humanity and your heroism for a job well done. Presented this second day of October 2007 by the Honorable Mayor Joseph M. DeBella. Gentlemen, thank you very much. God bless you. Very happy.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I guess we're gonna-
I don't know which one's Vince and which one's Vance.
Yeah, in the operating room, we're also confused sometimes. That's Vince, I'm Vance.
Vance would like to say something.
I gotta tell you, it was definitely a pleasure meeting you, Deputy Mayor. Coming into Howell, being that we have very busy offices in New York City and in Philadelphia, a lot of our colleagues thought we were crazy. Medicine has become extremely political now, and it's very hard for individuals to get really good health care because the insurance companies are really the ones, dictating this, your care. But coming into Howell certainly has changed a lot of our colleagues' impressions of a warm welcome. I mean, our business has boomed. We love where we are. The people in Howell are just very appreciative. And then when we found out we were getting this award, that just capped it all. I mean, our whole staff was just, you couldn't be any more appreciative than that. And we plan to be here for a while, and we plan to, be here to stay. And anybody that comes through our doors, whether it's for cardiothoracic reasons or urology or transplant, whatever the case may be, we will take care of them. And I'm sure if you've talked to any of our patients, they will tell you the same. And we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
God bless you. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
This is mine.
Suck it up, folks.
Thank you very much.
I'd also like to read this proclamation from the Office of the Mayor for Fire Prevention Week, October 7th through 13th. This year's Fire Prevention Week. Whereas smoke and poisonous gases are the leading causes of death in fires and can kill a person long before the flames will. And whereas underestimating the power of fire and the time it takes to escape a home fire put people at severe risk of death and injury. And whereas the fire service of Howell Township is dedicated to the safety of life and property from the devastating effects of fire. And whereas the members of the fire service are joined by other concerned citizens in this town, as well as other emergency service providers and safety advocates, businesses, schools, service clubs, and organizations in their fire safety efforts. Reducing the risk in fire and keeping people really safe is a team effort. And whereas even in sickness and after death, the bonds of love and history cannot be undone as the feelings, memories, and love last in eternity. I, Deputy Mayor Robert Walsh, on behalf of Mayor Joseph DeBella of Howell, do hereby proclaim the week of October 7 through 13, 2007 as Fire Prevention Week in the Township of Howell. This week commemorates the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which killed more than 250 persons, left 100,000 homeless, and destroyed more than 17,400 buildings. I call upon the people of Howell Township to participate in fire prevention activities at home, work, and school, and to take steps needed to make their homes and families safe from the leading causes of home fires, which include cooking, heating, electric, and candles. I call upon the people of the Township of Howell to participate in fire prevention at home, work, and school year-round, and to remember, practice your escape plan. Joseph M. DeBella, the Mayor of Howell Township. As we all know, we have some outstanding fire departments here in Howell Township, and fire is a very serious thing. They've saved many lives, but they also say that we need to contribute with them and to do our part. So everybody try to keep that in mind next week and at all times, but especially with the anniversary of that Great Chicago Fire that left so many homeless and so many dead. So all of us try to keep that in our mind and do the best we can to keep our families and our neighbors safe. Thank you. Next, I'd like to go to reports of township officials. Councilwoman Dalton.
As everybody knows, my father passed away on September 15th, and I just wanted to say to everyone in the community, as well as all the employees, the department heads, the manager, the council, the outpouring of love and support and sympathy, kind words, was overwhelming to me and my family. I appreciate everything that everyone did and said with regard to my loss. As you all know, if you were here on January 1st when I was sworn in, my father was one of the most important people in my life, and I just wanted to thank the community for being there in my time of need. I also wanted to just remind people there's a blood drive at Southern Firehouse on Friday from 3 to 8 p.m., October 5th. It's very important to get out there and donate blood. I'll be there. Also, I know that flu shots were given out today, the Senior Center, and on Howell Day, Carol Zur asked me to give a reminder that they're also being given out on October 4th, right, Mrs. Schlegel?
I believe so.
And October 4th here at Town Hall? Or at the Senior Center? At the Villages?
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Villages Clubhouse.
And is that open to anybody or just residents of the Villages?
All residents of Howell.
All residents of Howell, age 60 and over.
That's correct.
Proving you're a resident of Howell so that you can get your flu shot.
In the morning, it'll be in the Villages Clubhouse, and in the afternoon, it'll be in Surrey Downs.
Okay, so Villages and Surrey Downs, you can call the Senior Center to make sure. I had the privilege of attending the dedication of the Police Department building on Saturday morning to Harvey Morrell. For those of you who made it, it was a great program. The Deputy Mayor was there, along with Mayor DeBella and a whole bunch of other people from surrounding towns and our State Assembly, legislature. Mr. Morrell, what a remarkable history he has, unbelievable career of service and dedication to this township. And, of course, Howell Day on Saturday was a big success as well. That's all I have to report.
Councilman Howell.
I just have two things I wanted to talk about. One was, if I could, Helene, I got an email from Donna Milanowicz about the problems on Memorial Drive continuing. I guess the kids playing in the street.
Skateboarding.
And did you get a copy of that email?
Did it have to do with skateboarding?
Skateboarding, and she brought up the September 12th meeting at Middle School South, where comments were made by the former manager and the mayor about the road not going to be open until lights were put in it. And then before that, I had asked you for permission to speak to the township engineer about that, because somebody else, I believe, had raised that question. So could Mr. Nunziato, just so that we can try to put the issue of the lights and why the lights aren't there, would it be okay for Mr. Nunziato to address that?
Absolutely.
As we've discussed in the past, the issue of the traffic light at Memorial Drive was something that was not originally in the scope of work of the project.
Right, not traffic lights,
No,
just
the
street lights.
I'm
Street
sorry,
lighting.
the street lighting, okay, I apologize. After the fact, the road was basically constructed, and it was barricaded off because there were no lights. At the time, we still had the access, the original access roads through Pine Needle. Okay, so what we had requested from traffic safety, the police department, as well as the traffic engineers for Remington and Vernick, who are our consultants, we had said to them, is this road safe to use without lights? Okay, it meets all criteria for, you know, a roadway of that speed limit. The signage was up, the speed limits were in. And what they had said to us is, since there was actually another way or ways, multiple ways into the site, we would get the people used to that traffic pattern, okay? And we could, as long as it wasn't an exclusive right-of-way, if you will, and the only right-of-way, from a safety standpoint, there was no objection from either traffic safety or the traffic engineers to open that road without lights, okay? As far as looking to get lights, there was a little bit of issue with the way the road was actually developed, okay? It wasn't a subdivision, it was a roadway easement. Okay, so when we actually went to JCP&L, and the price tag was somewhere around $50,000, $60,000, somewhere in that range. They had said to us, well, right now it's a roadway easement, it's not a utility easement, we have to obviously change some of the language in the deeds to do that. There were some questions as to ownership of the basins in Forest Ridge, Briarcrest East, which was the second development, as well as the Camion piece, which was never dedicated to the township prior to his passing. So there were a lot of issues that were of a legal nature, which, you know, were in the process of being worked out. That being said, the lights at this point were not in the budget. I mean, it was about a $1 million project, $984,000, I believe, for Phase 1 or for the Memorial Drive project. And at this point, the encumbrances are done. So if we were to do that, put the lights in, that would have to be probably budgeted for.
All right, so just, if I understand, and Mr. Nundy, I'm not putting you on the spot. These are questions that I asked you before. I was just trying to let everybody else understand what you made me understand. We gave a contract to a company and said we want a road. And it was kind of like the company who did the roadway survey. They just told us which tar was bad, not what curbs were falling onto the tar. They did a project for a street.
Well, as we in the, you know, the manager and the department heads and staff, we like to ask for projects as what we call a turnkey project.
Right.
Now, it's soup to nuts. You know, we cut the ribbon, we're good to go, whether it be a park or a road or anything to that effect.
Right.
And in this case, this was just something that was not put into the original specifications.
Right, but the township, from what I gathered from the conversation that we had, was that's what we told Remington, Vernick, Vina, was we want a turnkey road. We want to be able to take the barrier down the day the road's open, and then everything will be there. So there was never any lights in the project, but we thought that there were because, hey, you're building a road, you put lights on. So the information, I guess, that was given on September 12th wasn't really based in fact, that there never was any lights in this project. And right now, there are no lights in the project,
That's correct.
because we don't own any land to put any lights in the project. Because the one fellow who we got the land from now has passed away, and we still haven't settled the title issues of the two basins that we cut through.
There would be some administrative work that would need to be done prior to installing any lights. That's correct.
Plus, we'd have to bond for the lights.
That's correct.
That everybody thought was in the first bond.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so it doesn't look like the lights are going to be turned on tonight when I get home.
Don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. And then the other thing was, I understand that there was this discussion between the mayor and some members of the VFW, and I'm really sorry that the mayor isn't here. As you all know, I was in Salt Lake City at 2 o'clock this morning and came here to discuss this. Apparently, the mayor had a discussion with some members of the VFW, and during those discussions, he relayed to them that if it was up to him, that the OEM building would have been given to the VFW yesterday, which is something that he said here, and that he's also said in print. And that it was the fault of the minority, or the majority of the council now, that they aren't in that building, and that he used words to the effect of, we were just blowing smoke up the VFW's butts. Cool. That kind of stuff annoys me. How long ago, if this was such an intense matter, that we would have given the OEM building to the VFW yesterday, when did the OEM vacate the building? The OEM building that's always been referred to next to the Board of Ed property?
I believe OEM officially moved out of the building approximately 3 years ago.
Okay. So any time in the past 3 years, there could have been a vote or an action by the prior council to turn the keys over to the VFW and the American Legion, if that was the desire of the former majority of the council.
I really can't answer for the council.
Can I make a comment?
Councilwoman Showmaker?
I don't think that is a correct statement. And Mr. Davis, you can refresh my memory. I think that that building had some significant problems at the time that we were made aware of, that that building had to be, I don't want to use the word investigated, they had to go through it because it was a township-owned building before anything could be done, and that's when they brought to the attention of the council way back when. There wasn't even that many, there were things wrong with it, significant things wrong with it, but there are, as the years have gone on, there's been more.
The same things that were wrong with it
That-
before are still wrong with it.
Right.
Today. You did get an estimate, I guess, some time ago, what the cost would be to
Correct.
rehab the building. I don't know if that estimate was entirely accurate. Upon reviewing it, we think it could be done for substantially less, but, you know, that was the last estimate that
The first that the three of us, I believe the three of us heard about it was when we saw the budget item for $160,000 to
That-
rehab that building.
That was the
That's
first
correct.
number.
Now, I'm imagining that if that building was inhabited 3 years ago, there may have been things that needed to be done. But we had a township agency in that building 3 years ago.
That's correct.
So obviously, the building wasn't ready to be condemned at that point in time, or else we wouldn't have had a township agency in it. I think the reason for the OEM moving to the new building was to get the equipment out of the rain, pretty much is what it was.
They needed
So-
more space.
So if it had been the desire of the, and obviously you can't answer, but I feel if it had been that important an issue, the keys could have been turned over, and the damage to the building, which has now sat abandoned for 3 years with no heat, no hot water, mold growing on the walls, leaks in the roof, would have been much, much less than the $160,000, which was obviously started, the work was being started on that budget number last year, before this new council ever saw that number. Because I know right now, you're seeing budget numbers for the 2008 budget. And you started seeing them in September.
That's correct.
So this wasn't something that, in January, George Gravatt just said, hey, look, let me throw 160 grand in the buildings and grounds budget. Right?
Right.
I'll make another comment. Since we did keep copious notes, actually verbatim at the time, I would strongly suggest that we go back and we pull the minutes from that, because it was not, it wasn't a 5-minute conversation. Pull the notes and pull the minutes as to what it was suggested to us and what needed to be done, because I believe that there were reasons for them moving out of the building other than just because they needed more space.
Okay.
It wasn't just because they needed space. They weren't really holding their meetings there in that building.
The same issues, again,
Right.
existed.
Right.
There was those reasons, as well as getting the equipment under the roof,
Correct.
as well as needing more space. But as a practical matter, the building still had issues that needed to be
Serious.
rehabbed.
Okay. Now,
Still does.
the final part of the conversation that was relayed to me at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday was that this council had no intention of doing anything for those service organizations. Mrs. Slagle, you and I and the former manager have been having conversations since February, once we found out about this problem
That's
with the
correct.
OEM building, about an alternate location for the VFW and the Legion and them. So, and it's not that we had a conversation in February and nobody ever spoke about it again, is that right?
That's correct.
And at this point in time, that option is still open.
Yes, it is.
I just wanted to, just because it seems to rear its ugly head every once in a while, and I just want to put it to bed once and for all. This council is absolutely dedicated to finding a place for the VFW and the Legion to meet. We're not stringing anybody along. It annoys me that somebody would take that tact. And that individual, the mayor is well aware of what we've been working on. He's been made aware of this. I spoke to him about it at the last meeting the VFW was here. So for him to sit there and try to undercut the rest of this council, it's troublesome to me. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Showmaker?
I'd just like to comment on Mr. Howell's situation with the VFW. Since I'm the long-standing councilwoman here, I would strongly suggest, since I have sat here and some of the same issues from the very first day I sat on this seat, are still in front of me. I would strongly suggest to us as a council, a collective body, that we set a limit, a time limit, because I, for one, will tell you that we don't get closure to a lot of things, and I'm casting blame anywhere, because I know the wheels of government run very slow. But I think, in all fairness, to the other side, to the VFW, we owe them a time of essence. We need to say to them, if at this juncture we're not coming close to anything, we need to be upfront and we need to be honest with them. I don't believe in belaboring an issue or misleading someone. And I think that as a collective body, we need to sit down, and everybody needs to, we're all adults here, we need to say, this is what we can do, and this is what we can't do. And get closure to that, and not have it go on from year to year to year. Because I will tell you, for one, some of the situations that we're in, that our attorney's handling, they've been here since I started here, and when I go, they're still going to be here. And that offends me, because it makes me feel like I have not done my obligation to the people of the town, because I haven't been able to answer those. And there are certain things that we as a council, we are here to set policies. We are not here to run the day-to-day offices and the day-to-day to government. However, it is our obligation to find an answer from our board and to be able to give an accurate and honest answer to those that sit in front of us. And that's all I'll make on that. Just two quick comments. I don't know if any of you read, I know we have on for an ordinance, indulge me for 1 second. It has to do with the rent control board. And I think I want to ask, Ernie, can I ask you one quick question? I read the letter from the office of the attorney. Are they considered a private entity? Are we asking them to do something that is illegal, that's not a legal thing to do, so that ordinance, we really shouldn't be doing that ordinance?
Talking about the memorandum from Frank Howell, the rent control board?
No, we received another letter, and I think I left it back in executive sessions, from another firm that states case law that says they are a private entity, and we as a collective body have no right to ask them to give up their financial disclosure by ordinance. And I want to just know that before we, move forward on that ordinance. That's one, and you don't have to answer that now.
I don't remember receiving that letter, but...
While you're pondering on that, I'd just like to speak to the board for a moment on your thoughts on, which I've always thought this was a good idea, the township auditor, appointing the township auditor so that he is ready and starts reviewing here in November so that we're ahead of the game. Because as you all know from sitting here now, when we purchase things, we're always behind the 8 ball. Same thing when it comes to the auditor. It just makes it, I think it'll make everyone's job easier if the auditor was appointed this year and on board for already next year. I don't know if you had a chance to read that.
Yes.
And Ernie, this came from Lori Greenberg and Associates on behalf of Green Acres Manor.
Yes.
That's from Hanlon. It was carbon copied to Hanlon and Howley. But she states case law, Hunting Park Gardens versus Town Council of West Orange, and it says that under rent control, they are guaranteed a CPI increase, and that it's wrong of us to ask them to disclose their financial statements.
Right. Okay, so I had not seen this one, but it was not directed to me, so that's why I hadn't. But in any event, I did see the memorandum from Mr. Howley, who I guess got the ball rolling in this direction. And I also had a phone call from Chris Hanlon the other day. I left a message. I've tried calling him back twice now. I left a message on his voicemail. Apparently he represents one of these mobile home park owners, I suppose. So he's inquiring about a potential ordinance. No ordinance has been drafted. We did have a discussion about this recently. I think that case law on this on these rent control increases, Mr. Howley would be more up on than anybody. He's been the rent control board attorney for several years. And I believe it was his recommendation to amend the ordinance. However, I do know from that field of law that there is a tremendous amount of case law on this subject of rent control boards and rent control increases. A lot of constitutional law has been settled on, believe it or not, in statutory interpretation. A lot of cases, a lot of reported cases on this subject matter. So I would hope that maybe what we could do is ask for a memorandum of law from Mr. Howley on case law research to support, because it just, his memorandum, as you know, more or less just says we want to have this ordinance changed.
Correct.
And it doesn't really
Doesn't give us any
amplify
basis,
the
right.
basis. There's good reasoning behind it, but it doesn't really say, it doesn't really answer the question, is this constitutional? Is
Correct.
it legal under our statutory framework? So I think that's a worthy objective. That's why you don't have an ordinance before you, one of the reasons you don't have an ordinance before you tonight.
It's actually on for discussion. That's why I wanted
Yes,
to know, because
right.
it
But
didn't
that's
give
why-
us any background, and I don't, maybe Ms. Dalton has some background as an attorney, but for us as laypersons, I cannot make that judgment, because there was nothing to, no type of documentation. There's nothing here to substantiate why he is requesting that.
Yeah, I can't really completely agree with the statements in Ms. Greenberg's letter. I don't necessarily agree that the issue is a matter of disclosure. The issue is really whether or not you can do more than what we've already done in terms of the criteria for hardship increases.
Right.
If we could change them for non-hardship increases. So I think the issue of privacy is not maybe as strong as some of the other issues. But again, since Mr. Howley got the ball rolling on this, maybe he wouldn't mind giving us a brief memorandum on that. I know he doesn't get, it's not a very high-paying position, his position as rent control board attorney, but since it was his idea, maybe we could ask him for a little bit of case law on that subject.
If you could, just because...
If the council would like that to happen, we can certainly contact Mr. Howley and ask for that request.
I think I need some more information before I could make, a judgment on that particular, changing that
Or do
ordinance.
you want to wait till discussion?
Well,
Okay.
we could put that off until we get that.
Yeah,
Okay.
until we get to
All right.
discussion.
That's it, Deputy Mayor.
On that subject, as a little follow-up, several months ago, we looked into the possibility of changing the composition of the rent control board. And we checked, Ms. Schlegel, as a matter of fact, checked surrounding townships, and I sent a memorandum some time ago on that subject, that you could change the composition. And we had a recent discussion about it, maybe if we do get around to changing the ordinance on this subject matter, that might be around the same time when we would discuss
Should do it all at one
changing the
time.
composition
Right.
as well, doing it all in one ordinance.
Thank you for looking into that, because that was, when I was on that board, that was something that I thought should be done. Thank you.
We've been working on
That's
it.
all.
Just a few things for myself also. The memorandum from Mr. Filiatro, our CFO, I concur with Councilwoman Showmaker on this. I had taken notes about it, and I'll agree with his recommendation about his expertise. That would be beneficial for the Township of Howell and citizens if we appointed an auditor earlier.
Thank you.
A few things that I would like to bring up, if possible, I'd like to look into at some time. I got a call from a resident about them having to get water and sewer permits and put $1,000 in escrow in each account, and they're on well and septic. I would like that looked into. I've looked into it a little bit. I've questioned some people about it, but it seems a little steep to me to somebody who's on well and septic to have to pay $500 to apply for water, $500 to apply for sewer, and $1,000 in escrow for each, when they're not going to be in water and sewer.
Don't we have a mandate that they're required?
Well, I believe it's actually to establish the paper trail, but let me ask Bill to speak to that.
The Howell Township rules and regulations do, in fact, it's a $500 application fee, which is non-refundable, and there is an escrow charge. And that is for the utility engineer to do their reviews. If, in fact, it is a sewer, rather a septic and a well area, the rules and regs, which actually the council does control, that is what's required. So in essence, the utility engineer does their reviews, and in fact, if they look at the wastewater management map and say you're in a septic area, they write a simple letter saying that you get preliminary, you're allowed to go septic now, and you don't have to go tentative and final, which is the second and third step process. And their review is done, and any unused escrows are returned. But that is to allow the utility engineer to do their reviews and make their letters accordingly, which again is the process for the rules and regulations for Howell Township, utility department, which again the council, by all means, can control those rules.
Personally, I think the fees are excessive, and I would like to see the documentation and workshop at another meeting to talk about maybe reducing those fees. Is that possible?
You what?
Well, again, any applicant is required to put the $1,000 up, and if they take, let's say, an hour to review the plan, write a letter, and they bill, let's say, $100 for that letter and the review time, then $900 basically
They get
is
the balance
returned
back.
to them. Granted, if it's a hardship for them to come up with $1,000, again, that's the council's, pleasure if they want to do something to that effect. But typically, an applicant doesn't know beforehand whether he's in a sewer or a septic area or a well or a water area.
I'd like the documentation, please. I'd like to workshop it sometime in the future.
We could put it on for discussion at the next workshop.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, can I just bring one thing to your attention, because I think this would interest you, but while we're on that subject. Also, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're going to be interested, because we're doing the sewer and water down in the southern area right now, correct? That's all?
Route 9 South, you're talking?
Yeah, Route 9 South. One of the things that you may not be aware of is we have a mandate. If sewer and water go in front of your house, you must connect, even if they're on well and septic. So they must connect. And I'm sure that there are going to be those that we're going to have issues with that aren't, it's going to be a hardship. I just don't know. I'm only bringing that to your attention because I wasn't sure if you were aware of that.
We can put a package of information together that gets to you, and then, so you'll be prepared to be fully knowledgeable and discuss it at the next workshop meeting.
Thank you very much. I brought to your attention a couple weeks ago, and I'd like, if possible, the engineer, the clerk, to elaborate on the apartments over buildings. Is that in any of our ordinances? Is that just particularly to one?
I can answer that. It's actually particular to one site, okay, is where it's the PMUs, and it's only for that one particular site.
So nowhere else in Howell Township are apartments, condos, or anything allowed to be put over the top of
Well, they can
businesses?
go in front of the zoning board for a variance, but other than that, that's the only place that it's permitted.
Okay, just wanted to make sure of that. I was questioned by a member of Howell First Aid about last year's ambulances, and if possible, I would like the printed minutes from the 2006 budget hearing about Howell Farmingdale First Aid and their ambulance. Can I get those printed minutes?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And if possible, I would like to set up a meeting with professionals, if it's the wish of the council, to implement the ordinances to protect us with our master plan. From speaking with the former manager, it seemed like he had a timetable that I don't think any of us are really privy to. And I think a meeting with the planning board attorney, planning board engineer, township attorney, zoning board attorney, our engineer, a couple members of the council would be very helpful in us implementing those ordinances in a timely fashion to protect the people of Howell. And right now, I don't know if we have.
Well, as you can see tonight on the agenda, we are introducing the zoning map. Is that on for introduction? Ernie?
16.
It's on for 16th of
right, for the
October. It's
16th.
not for tonight, but we have it.
Because I did have a meeting with the township attorney, the planning board attorney, the zoning board attorney, and other various professionals. What seemed to be happening is that, there was some confusion over what zoning map was the actual map that we were using. So that was our first step in getting the process started. So on the 16th, when we'll be adopting the zoning map, or introducing, I didn't really look, but introducing of the zoning map, then we'll have the one zoning map that we're working off of, and we'll proceed from there. So we have started the process.
If possible, I'd like to have a meeting, and this is the timetable. Councilwoman Showmaker just spoke about a timetable. It'd be nice to have a timetable. This is what we hope to accomplish in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months.
We can provide that.
Thank you very much. That will be it for me. Any reports from Township, from any town manager? Let's start with you, Ms. Slagle.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd just like to reiterate what Councilwoman Dalton said. I'd like to congratulate Brian Holtigan, our Parks and Recreation Director, his staff, and the Recreation Advisory Committee for the great job that they did on Howell Day. Additionally, I just needed to bring up, when the mayor had called that he wasn't going to be here tonight, he had some business out of town, but he asked me to request that he would like to ask the council for a resolution to waive and refund all fees that first aid squads incur by township employees. For nonprofits, especially first aids, not to have to pay for any inspection fees. And he would like an ordinance introduced. So I guess he's asking that you discuss that tonight. Right now, what our ordinance says is that application fees only are waived, but not inspection fees. And that's how the first aids have been charged. I will say that the first aids have been charged properly by our township employees. We've waived the application fees, but the inspection fees were charged according to ordinance.
So we would be going against our own ordinance.
That's
We'd have to,
correct.
what we'd have to do is change our ordinance.
Correct.
And
That's correct. You'd
as a
have to
collective
do-
body, that's what we do.
You would have to do an amendment.
Before I could make that decision, and I'm not saying I'm for or against, but I think that we need to see a copy of that ordinance and how it's structured. You know, does it just affect, is that only going to affect, because we always have such big holes in, you know, in ordinances when we try to recraft them. I just want to make sure that what we're doing and how we're wording it. You know?
Yeah. The
We-
intent sounds,
The intent's a great
the
thing, but
intent is fine, okay? Let's just make sure that when we do this right.
Well, what we can do is, we can provide you with a list of the various nonprofits that have incurred inspection fees over the last couple years, so that you can get an idea of what you're talking about.
Yep,
Additionally, we'll give you a copy of the ordinance, so that you'll know exactly
Okay.
how it's written and what's been done.
case in point, the church that sent us a letter this past month.
Right.
So that's why my comment is what I said. I think that we very carefully need to review exactly what the mayor is asking us to do. We need to read the ordinance first.
Well, the engineering department has provided me with a comprehensive list of fees that have been charged, inspection. These are charged to the escrow fees that the nonprofits put up. So we'll put together a package for you so that you'll have that information.
And just for the public's information, it is only the inspection fees.
That's
All
correct.
the application fees are always and have been waived.
Deputy Mayor, if I could, Mr. Schlegel, would it be possible to word it so that it wasn't not-for-profits, but just volunteer agencies?
That would be up to the mayor and council.
That's why I said.
Because a lot of not-for-profits, as you read about in the papers, are very profitable. I mean, here we're talking about, having rent control board wanting them to turn over their tax returns. And it's not illegal not to file your tax returns. It's illegal not to pay your taxes. You pay your taxes, Uncle Sam really doesn't mind that you don't file your tax returns. But I know there's a lot of not-for-profits out there that are very profitable. And, first aid volunteer organizations are one thing. Not-for-profit, I think, is getting very vague. I don't know if I'm into being that vague. So I would like to see the list. I'd like to see some backup literature. There's a lot more to it than just, let's waive all fees, all inspections,
I do believe the mayor's intent was that it especially be first aids, to focus on the first aids. But I can't speak for him, but I believe that's what he was saying to me. I don't know if he necessarily meant all nonprofits or just the first aids, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
I'm fine with it, but I need to know what other organizations that are volunteer organizations in Howell are also not-for-profits.
Well, Mayor, if I could interject something, I think the main reason the focus was on the first aids is because the other volunteer organizations, one is part of the municipal budget, which would be OEM. The others, the other 5 fire districts raise taxes to run their operation, and the first aids do not. They don't have that ability. They do fundraisers, and they do get contributions from the township, but that's it. They don't have the ability. They're not a taxing entity. So I think that's why the focus was on the first aids.
Absolutely.
If the focus is just on the first aid, I personally won't have an issue with it at all. But I want to see documentation. I want to see how it's worded.
We'll provide that.
Thank you.
That's all for me.
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Just to really follow up on Deputy Mayor's comments regarding organizing and implementing a plan of implementation of the master plan, the ordinances that need to be adopted to do that. Had discussion with our co-op planner this week, and that's exactly something we were talking about. I followed that up with a discussion with the manager. We need really like one group or one person tracking master plan ordinances needed to implement that. The planning board has a master plan subcommittee, but I don't think that they see their role right now as doing that. I think that would be helpful if maybe we could send a memo to the master plan subcommittee of the planning board and say, whatever assistance you can give in terms of, you may have other interests, but just helping us implement the master plan would probably be the primary focus of such a group. But again, there needs to be one person or one group tracking the plan versus the ordinances needed to adopt it. And that has not really happened. But there has been some progress, as Ms. Schlegel noted. Earlier in the year, we adopted the ARE 2, 3, 4, and 6 zones ordinance. We adopted the RMLD, Reserve Mountain Rural District, the HD3. So we have implemented some of the zoning ordinances, but I think there's probably a lot more that needs to be done.
Okay. Mr. Luciano, anything, sir?
No, sir.
Thank you for your input.
Okay.
Okay.
Comment on a consent agenda.
I'd like to open up, the meeting to public comment on agenda items, just consent agenda items.
Deputy Mayor, that would be 9B13, 9B14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
That's nothing.
20. The motions, 9C1 and 9C2. And we had add-ons, correct, Penny?
We have add-ons.
Yes, if I may, 9B15 is off.
9B15's off.
9B15's off.
Yes.
Do we need to vote
And
to
we're,
add on?
and we're adding 9B11 for action to be taken tonight.
9B11. We'll add 9B11.
If
Do we
you
need
follow
this?
the
How about 9A, 11, and 12?
smiley sheet, everybody will be fine.
Excuse me?
Here's 11 and 12 right here.
11 and 12 are on the sheet.
If you want, Mayor, I could quickly go through some of this.
Would you please?
We're going to remove 9A2 and 9A5 for this evening. And 9B15, as I indicated before, is off.
15.
15 is off.
So those are off.
Let me know when you're ready, we'll move on. We're adding on 9A11 and 9A12,
Right.
both ordinances. We're just adding them to the agenda. They will be formally introduced on the 16th.
Oh.
9B22 is a resolution we spoke of earlier, which was for computer equipment.
Right.
That's an add-on.
Okay.
9B21 resolution is also an add-on.
So let me get this straight. We're in on 9A2, 9A5
Are off.
are off. We're removing 9A2 and 5.
Correct.
We're in on 9A11, 9A12, 9B21 resolution, and 9B22.
Or add-ons, correct.
Our add-ons, and we're taking off 9B15.
Yes.
That's correct.
And there is a number of items for action for tonight. When you're ready for that, we can get to them.
Would anybody like us, any member of the council like to have a separate vote on anything they'd like to be taken off before we vote on it?
There's no vote to remove them, sir. You don't need to do that.
Just public
This is
comment.
just a workshop, so they haven't been advertised yet.
Any public comment?
You were on the, right, the public comment on the agenda items for action tonight.
I'll open up the floor to public comments
An action items only.
on action items only.
It's not that cheap, that's later. That cheap at the end of the meeting.
Ms. Dixon, name and address for the record, please.
Barbara Dixell, Howell Township. Can I ask you why you're pulling 9B15 when Mrs. Dalton has to cast the deciding vote?
We wanted a full council, and the mayor is absent.
He already voted.
You have to have a separate vote. Every vote is a unique separate vote.
No, it was a tie, and you said that they were going to hold it over, and she was going to cast it, that was at the last meeting, that she was going to cast the deciding vote. It was 2-2.
She has to vote on the same resolution that is before everybody. And that resolution from that week, or whatever that week was not passed. Now we have to have a new vote, and the idea was to try to have the full council there.
That wasn't the comment that was made. The comment that was made, pull the minutes, it doesn't make a difference. The comment that was made was that she has to cast a deciding vote.
It's a matter of law.
Yeah, but you can't have a vote on a resolution, you can't have just one person voting on a
Okay.
resolution that's already been defeated, basically.
They said, okay, that's not what the comment was made. All right, 9B17, can somebody explain that?
Community development.
Ms. Schlegel, could you explain that one, please?
Yes, I can. There was just an error in the number, so this is just an administrative correction.
Okay.
From a grant that we've already discussed?
That's correct.
All right, 9B18, 19, 20. Why are we hiring separate legal counsel for three different two police officers and the chief of police?
This is...
Who's suing who?
Ms. Dixell, I believe this is contractual,
That's correct.
okay, that they have the right to seek their own representation.
Mr. Mayor, these attorneys are all on the list of our insurance company.
They're on the approved list from the
Yes,
Jeff?
they're on the approved list.
Is Howell Township being sued by any of these guys?
No. These are police officers that are being sued in connection with their line of duty.
Okay. 9B 21 and 22, since I don't have them, what are they, if it's possible?
9B21 is amending the contract for the cell tower expert, and 9B22 is purchase for computers.
Okay, how are you amending the cell tower thing?
We had spoken about it, Mrs. Dixell, about 2 months ago, and I don't believe we ever did a resolution to
Right.
coincide with what we discussed and voted on up here at that time. So all we're doing now is just voting on a resolution?
You're memorializing his contract.
Oh, Scanlon,
Yes.
okay. Okay. Okay, I guess that's it until public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dixell. Mr. Smith?
Mr. Smith is bachelor tonight. Mr. Smith is
Don-
home pickling and canning.
Don Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. I just want to address 9B16, where you will be endorsing the Green Acres, Farmland, Blue Acres, and Historic Preservation Act. I wholeheartedly support this act. However, I think we have to go beyond just a resolution. I'd like us, as Howell Township, maybe we can incorporate some good writers. We need to get some good press out on the value of the open space preservation. Maybe we can get John Costigan to enlist some help and write some press. If we can get our newspapers, our reporters to back us and help us make this sell, because this year there is actual negative campaigning against this ordinance. I mean, people, not ordinance, I'm sorry, the legislation. People feel that their taxes are getting out of hand. They're going to vote just to no more money, that's it. But they don't realize what the open space saves every municipality and the state in the long run. And I think we should do more than just this resolution. And we have a little bit of time, but not a heck of a lot, to get good press out there and make a push for it. And that's all I wanted to bring up. And I will have other things on the later public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Anybody else? So state your name.
My name's Ross Aboff. I'm at 564 Newton's Corner Road. I hope that I'm here at the right time. This is on 9B11, which is to allow me to hook up to city water. I thought I was to understand that it is on for tonight.
Yes, it
Thank
is.
you.
It's not.
Yes,
It is Seattle.
Okay, all right.
So I'm in the right place at the right time?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been a resident for about 15 years. I have well water now. My well is failing. It has broken down twice in the last 2 years, and both times the repair person has told me, you're going to dry up pretty soon. So when I inquired to the township staff about what I needed to do, they explained I needed to ask you guys to adopt a resolution allowing me to break into the ground to hook up to city water. I have 5 children. If we were to dry up and run out of water, it would be a significant hardship. I really wouldn't be able to live in the house. And no one would want to sit next to my kids in class because they haven't taken a bath or a shower in weeks. So I understand that the street has been paved within the last year or 2 years, which is why I'm here. But I would really greatly appreciate if you would adopt this resolution tonight.
Thank you.
I would just like to ask, were you told by the repairman that your system was failing?
Yes. Yes.
Before the roads were paved?
Oh, no, I was not. I don't know exactly when the road was paved. The last failure happened about maybe 3 weeks ago, which is really why I'm here today.
Ask Bill. Ask Bill, he'll tell you when the roads were paved.
Mr. Nunziata, when was the road paved?
Newton's Corner was paved in various pieces over about 5 different contracts. So unfortunately, I'm trying to go through specifically where his lot is, and I can't get the answer for you at the present time. Nonetheless, if indeed he does require, the waiver, in the road opening permit, we would ask for, again, special consideration at the infrared the surface, so that if it is a newly paved road, that the surface is heated and it's not a patch where, the patches you see where it's like a speed bump. So typically that's what we would require.
Deputy Mayor, 564 is all the way down by the Y, correct?
No, I'm by Easy Street.
Yeah, you're further, how far is north of Easy Street?
2 houses.
All right, because my knowledge is that the water lines only run to Parkside from Lakewood. They don't go down past Easy Street.
Oh, no, there's water. There's water. It's,
Yeah, they took it all the way from the Historical Society. They went like 5 miles to get there.
Because I know the new water
About
lines
10
that
years
came
ago.
2 years ago came from
No,
Lakewood
no,
all
this
the way
was-
up Ramtown
Yeah,
Greenville
this was
Road.
about 10 years ago. The water line was 10 years, yeah.
My concern is, and we discussed this before the meeting, is that there's no other house from that Historical Society all the way up to Parkside that's on city water, not one. Every house over there is on a well.
That's not true. My 2 next-door neighbors are both on city water.
Which next door neighbors?
The one on either side of me?
The third house and the first house, if
Thank
he's
you.
on the second.
And when did they hook up to the city water?
At various times. I know that my next-door neighbor to the north hooked up when they installed the water, which is going back, as the engineer
10
mentioned,
years.
I think about 10 years. The guy on the other side, I don't know when he hooked up. But I do know for a fact that there's water there, and many of the residents along the street are hooked up.
All right, because you don't know me, I don't know you. I own a water treatment company. I have a ton of customers on your block. I live on your block.
Oh, yeah?
My dentist lives across the street from you. He's a guy with the big tooth for a
The tooth
mailbox.
there we
Yeah.
go. Yeah. So
They're all on wells.
Some are.
And one of the things that worried us when they wanted to change the zoning over there was if there was water and sewer available, that we were gonna wind up with instead of going, I believe you're ARE 2?
My zone?
Right.
I have no idea.
And they wanted to change the ARE 1 all the way up down, and then down Easy Street was, we would be in some big trouble if we started making available our water and sewer.
Anything
Well,
else?
he's saying that there's people on both sides of him, though, that are on the water.
Yeah, there definitely are.
Well, the fact of the matter is, the man's well is drying up. He needs to get a road opening permit to connect to the water and the sewer, and we need to make a informed decision. Thank you very much.
You don't want to hook up to the sewer, right?
There is no sewer.
All right,
The
so
water.
it's just a water
Just
line.
water.
That's
Just water.
correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments from the public? Closed that portion of the meeting. Council. Would anybody like separate votes? Any comments on any consent agenda items?
Mr. Deputy Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman Dalton.
I believe we need a separate vote on 9B13, 9B14, and as typical with resignations and appointments to volunteer boards, we would need separate votes or discussions on 9C 1 and 2.
9C 1 and 2.
Can I, a quick comment on 9C 1 and 2. Can we vote to accept the resignations and then appoint fill the vacancies in another time? Because that's what we've seemed to have done in the past.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yes.
So do we need to amend that, or just,
Would you like to
no?
amend that?
Bruce, do we need to
No,
amend that?
just when you make it in the form of a motion, just say it's for accepting the resignation,
Right.
period.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Just to let you know, on 9C2, I think there was a recommendation from that Broadcast Media Advisory Committee for an appointment in your packet.
Thank you.
I did not see that.
It is.
I'd like to find that before we... Who are we looking at?
I think it looks like, is that Chris Tully's?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
So that's someone that the chairman of the advisory committee would like to see appointed?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So
I
we
have
could,
no problem with
we
that.
could do
That's
that.
pretty much what we've done. We've taken the recommendation of the chairman on
I
these.
just wanted to make you aware that that was in there.
Okay.
The book was 200 pages this week.
It is what it is.
I think I omitted 10.
It was small.
We can move to CD if you would like.
Like I said, the book was 200 pages this week.
That's a small one.
Okay, so we'll amend 9C1 to appoint a member of the Recreation Advisory Committee alternate at a later date. Correct?
Yeah, you can do that when the motion's made.
Well, we'll do them all at once, are we not?
Yes, sir, you certainly can. So why don't we, when we started, the ordinances have to be separate. We're introducing those this evening, but the rezos you're taking action on. 9B, we're not doing, maybe we're doing 9B 21 and 22 tonight,
Correct.
okay? We're also doing 9B 11,
12,
13, 14,
13 and
15.
14 will be a separate vote.
Right, 15 is off.
15's off.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 I already said. And
21 and
9C1,
22.
9C2. Now, 9C1, part of the motion will be to accept the resignation, and that is all. We will be making no appointment to fill it.
Correct.
9C2 will be to accept the resignation and accept the appointment
Recommendation,
Of Chris Tully.
Chris Tully.
Chris Tully.
And 9B12 is on for tonight? What did you say?
Say that again.
9B12,
I'm sorry?
9B12 is on for, motion for tonight?
Yes.
yes.
Okay. All
There's a
right.
separate vote, though, again, on
Right.
13 and 14.
So I make a motion to accept 9B11, 9B12.
Mrs. Showmaker, if you could, Mayor, we need a motion to go into public session, regular session. Motion and second.
Need a motion, go into regular second?
So moved, Mayor.
That's second.
A roll call.
Roll call,
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
yes.
Okay. Now we can do the Mrs. Showmaker again.
I'd like to make a motion to accept 9B11, 9B12, 9B16, 9B17, 18, 9B19, 9B20, 9B21, 9B22, 9C1 to accept the resignations of Recreation Advisory Committee alternate 2-member Eric Havla and alternate 3-member Todd Shackleton, and 9C2 accept the resignation of Broadcast Media Advisory Committee Board Member Cheryl Salerno Murphy, and make the appointment to vacancy to a Chris Tully, Tully.
Second.
Did good. Second.
Councilman Al second,
Well, roll call, ma'am.
call the vote,
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
yes. We need a separate vote, 9, on,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, one thing, while we're in public session, although there's no action this evening, I just wanted to, for the record, 9/8/11 and 9/8/12 will be introduced on the 16th of October.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to make a motion to accept 9B13, authorize additional funds for Township COA Planner.
Second.
Roll call.
any discussion before we call the vote?
Deputy Mayor, if I could, the reason that the funds were required for the COA planner were due in large part, Mrs. Schlegel, if I'm not wrong, with the state throwing COA's third round certification out and requiring the plan to be reworked almost in its entirety. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So these were fees that could not have been foreseen by anyone.
No, they could not.
Okay.
Any other comments? Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Can you come back to me, please?
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
I'm going to abstain. I wasn't at the meeting where the discussion about this took place, and I'm really not comfortable voting on it.
9B14.
I'd like to make a motion, Deputy Mayor, to authorize 9B14, additional funds for the Township COA attorney. This is,
Second. Oh, I'll second it.
Any comments before we call the vote?
this is basically, we're in the same situation on this as we are with the planner, the COA planner. It has to do with our COA plan and our certification. And these are things that, you know, it'd be nice to have a magic ball to see into. These are just things that we have no control over, nor can we foresee, unfortunately. But I must say that both the COA planner and the COA attorney have done a great job.
Anybody else? Our affordable housing, I'd like to make a couple of comments. Our affordable housing attorney and planners, there's no way that they could know that the state was going to change the rules in the middle of all their work. To say they had to start new, they had to, never mind just start new, they had new rules and regulations. So that everybody understands, nobody really knows what they are yet they still have to do all the work. It hasn't been outlined totally by the state. But there's been a lot of write-ups in the paper recently about affordable housing obligations. And there are state mandates. And in how we've done a real good job in the past with meeting a lot of those obligations. But the planner and the attorney, they had a lot of extra work to do. And they think they have a solid plan pretty much intact for us now. But then again, they don't know the final answer of what the regulations are going to be when they come down from the state. So, we're guessing. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve instead of behind it. Staying behind the curve never works. So, call the vote, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Where are we going next?
Mayor, if I may, we're going to go to, well, before we do, just under unfinished business, all the 8As will be on 16th for public hearing. They've already been introduced and advertised. Action tonight is required on, I should say, is requested on 9A 1, 3, and 4. You could start at 9A1 if you like. It's in your book as well as on the agenda. And
These for introduction, right?
yes, introduction. The statement is there for whoever is going to, whoever council member is going to move it.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 0-07-43 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the 10/507 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on October 16th at 7:30 prevailing time in the municipal building.
Give a second.
Second.
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, establishing dog kennels as a conditional use within the SED zone, revising definitions regarding kennels, and limiting the number of dogs per household in all zones.
Roll call.
Any comments? Call the vote.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Need a member of the council? 982's been
Motion to introduce ordinance number 0-07-44 on first reading by title and to order the same to be
That one's
published in
off.
full.
That one's off, Mr. Chairman.
983 and 982's off.
Oh, it's off, I'm sorry.
To 983.
No problem.
983.
Okay, motion to introduce ordinance number 0-07-45 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the 10/507 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it be further considered for final passage after public hearing in the meeting of the Township Council be held on October 16th, 7:30 prevailing time in municipal building.
Give a second.
Second.
Clerk to read the ordinance, please.
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the Township of Howell, Chapter 7, Traffic, Schedule 16, entitled Speed Limits, by repealing ordinance number 08960, which sets speed limits along Addison Road.
Any comments? Call the vote.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Member of the council, please, 984.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 0-07-46 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the 10/507 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 10/16/07 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time in the municipal building.
Second.
Any comments? Clerk to read the ordinance, please.
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending the code of the Township of Howell, Chapter 7, Traffic, Schedule 16, entitled Speed Limits, as it pertains to Sunnyside Road.
Mr. Holmes, please call the vote.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes. 985's off. Member of the council, please, 986.
That's
We're
that's
done,
it. We're done.
We're done.
Yeah, the rest will be introduced on the 16th.
Okay.
If you look at the second page of your smiley face, that'll give you the play-by-play till the end of the year, pretty much.
Discussion items.
Yeah.
Going out to the back page now.
On, Mayor, if I might, on discussion 10-1, amendment to rent control ordinance, I'd like for us to I think we discussed that briefly, that we had some concerns, just if we can move that off until we get further documentation on that.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I would like to see more information. I have a concern that we're asking someone for something we're not asking everybody for.
Okay.
It really does concern me. Is there a state regulation, do you know, that we have to, that they get granted the CPI, or is it a township ordinance?
That's what we don't know.
Green,
I'm not, I can't answer that because I'm not really certain, and our township attorney stepped out.
Okay.
If I could just quickly comment that it's been stated both ways. It's never been a definitive answer.
Okay.
It depends what attorney is giving you the statement, because there's interpretations on both sides.
Well, I know if they ask for more of an increase than the CPI, that they have to, that they ask for a hardship increase, they have to show the tax returns,
Their financial statements.
financial statements. Okay.
well, I would think that our rent control attorney ought to know if it's legal what he's asking us to do or not.
Right. I would have to agree.
But what he did is he sent us a letter asking us to do it without any documentation. So he has not, there's nothing really,
We'll get the documentation and the backup, and we'll get a legal opinion from
Good.
him as suggested by Mr. Bongiovanni, and then we can provide that to you, and you can we'll put it on discussion for another meeting.
great.
Okay. 10-2, on EDC committee redesign. Open for discussion. Anybody from the council?
Been there, done that.
What are your thoughts on it, Councilwoman Showmaker? You've been here a long time. What are your thoughts?
Actually, the first board that I sat on was EDC here in Howell Township. At the time I sat on it, in fact, that's where I actually met Mr. Tabasco. He was very, very active on that board. I haven't been there in quite some time. I think it may have got off track, and I can't say that because I didn't go to the last 2 years' meetings, but we did have EDC, I guess, what do you want to call him? What was his title, Barry's?
Oh,
What was he,
He's like a consultant, you know, and I think I have to say that, I think what happened was, when we had the consultant, the board itself, which is a volunteer board, was less active or less instrumental in what I felt the committee was formed for, because it almost made it a little different, and that's just my interpretation when he came on. The board was a collective body that worked together on trying to bring ways to bring economic growth to the community, along with maybe ideas with the master plan. I know Mrs. Smith isn't here, but she was very active also. She would go and very instrumental in the meetings with EDC as somebody that had a long-standing relationship with the planning board committee and so on and so forth. But when we got the consultant, I think things changed a little bit, because maybe they felt what they were trying to do in their volunteerism wasn't as much utilized or brought to the board. That was my take on it, but I have to be in all honesty, I haven't been there for a couple of years.
well, if I remember the discussion that the council had regarding this matter and listing it for discussion, was that there was a question that the EDC has not been given any specific direction,
Right.
and that the council wanted to discuss specific guidelines and a direction for them to follow. What I've done is I've
Outlined.
included in your packet, I've put together a package that'll show you, there's 2 copies of 2 New Jersey Townships goals and visions for their EDC to give you some idea of what other economic development committees are doing. And additionally, I've included the information on what potential investors look for in choosing a community. And a sample, if you'll see in there, there's a little sample municipal readiness test that can be used to really determine our community's investment readiness. And it'll demonstrate where our municipality may have deficiencies and where we may need to improve. So if you want to have I don't know if you've had the opportunity to review that material, but it's something that you may want to look at and come up with some guidelines and directions and some goals and objectives for the EDC.
When do they meet?
Once a month.
I don't know that.
Once a
I don't
month.
recollect.
They used to meet once a month.
I would like to go to the meeting and
Well,
talk with them and
We'll get that in.
and get a feeling from them of what they think they've accomplished, what they would like to accomplish. Maybe they want more feedback from
Yeah,
us.
I think they're looking, I actually believe that they're looking for guidance. I was going to attend the meeting, and I got a call in my office that their last meeting, which was last week, scheduled for last week, I believe, was canceled. The chairman called my office.
Deputy Mayor, if I might comment to Ms. Slagle, I did have an opportunity to read this, Ms. Slagle, and I just want to commend you on what you've presented to us, and I think it would be great for us as a body up here to have guidelines for this for all our volunteer committees, because this gives them an idea of what we as a collective body want from them. It also makes them a part of us, because I think what happens is, as being a volunteer, is you're giving of your time on these boards, and I don't know that they always think what they're doing and the things that they are coming up with is really presented to us. So I think if we give them guidelines, and that goes for all the committees, we give them guidelines, and we get maybe a quarterly report, or, because I have to tell you that sitting up here, we don't see anything from EDC. I don't know if we're supposed to see for anything from the volunteer committees or not, Mr. Slagle, maybe, or Bruce, can you know? Do we get that, or does it come to you? Because really, we as a body, we set policy.
What we get is minutes generally.
Right.
Well, what we may want to think of doing is having these committees come before us once every 6 months and give us a 5-10 minute presentation. So we
don't
can
think that's a
understand where
problem.
they've been, what they've been looking into to help benefit the citizens of Howell, and we can give them feedback on where we would like maybe for them to, look into this, look into that.
And we used to have occasionally, Bruce, even MRSA used to meet with us on a quarterly, MRSA used to come up and on a quarterly basis.
Our representatives.
Our representative would come and give us a report as to what was going on. So we have had that in the past.
Well, I think we can request that. By the way, I was just, the EDC meets the fourth Monday of each month.
Right, yeah, it's 7:30 upstairs, correct?
Yes.
It's on the calendar we got tonight.
And I have to tell you, on these boards, we have a lot of very intelligent, very well-versed volunteers that really are truly, they want to be involved. They really want to be involved in the
Well,
community.
maybe that can be one of the goals, is that we come up with goals and objectives for each committee. I know I met 2 weeks ago with the chairman from the Ordinance Review Committee, and I believe there a lot was accomplished, and they had direction to follow for their first meeting to get started with, and they've already acted on some things that we've asked them to do. So I think that your suggestion is well taken.
Yeah, I saw him, he was fired up.
Yeah. We've been in constant contact.
Yeah, he was excited about his meeting
But I
with
have
you.
to agree with Councilwoman Showmaker, is that the committees are looking for direction.
Okay.
And once they have direction, there's no question that they act on it.
Right. They really want to be a part. They want to know that what they're doing is not for naught, that they are bringing something to the table that contributes to the community. That was always my feeling when went into those meetings.
It's true. I mean, I'm a liaison to the Finance Review Committee, to the Recreation Advisory Board, and I don't make all the meetings. I would like to, but I also have a family. But they all want to feel like they're accomplishing something for the good of the township. They are giving of themselves freely. Very concerned. A lot of outstanding people apply for these positions in Howell Township. I wish I was starting a company from scratch. Whole bunch of resumes, some outstanding people I'd love to employ. maybe the next time the mortgage market turns around, we'll have to see.
Well, maybe
Anybody
we
else?
can make
Councilwoman
that,
Cook.
maybe we can make that one of our goals for the future, is that you as a body, and establish some goals and objectives of all the committees. Should be one of your goals.
Okay. Councilwoman Dalton, anything?
Do the volunteer committees aren't required to provide a report every month?
No, they're not. But that could certainly be a suggestion, and they would, I can't speak for all the committees, but I think that they would welcome that.
I mean, I don't think it has to be a lengthy report.
No,
Just
absolutely.
We met, who was there, this is what we talked about. You know, can we have some help or whatever? I know that the council liaisons to some of these committees, it's a good role. I think as long as we keep them in check. I know that I communicated to you what the
Yes, you
ordinance
did,
review
yeah.
committee wanted, what,
Mhm.
what, you know, the thoughts were, and then from there, you and the chairman were able to work through. When I followed up with him, because I was unable to make it to the last meeting, he was very excited about what had already been accomplished. I think getting direction, what you're doing as far as giving direction has been most helpful in keeping the committee focused.
Councilman Howell, anything?
No, I think everything that Councilwoman Showmaker has said needs to be looked at. The town, I know I sat on a preservation task force, and people sit there and say, well, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing? Nothing's getting done, but they don't realize things take time. And you sit there and you feel like nobody's appreciating what you're doing. So, and also having the committees come in and give us reports, you know, it gives the people in town, if they sit out here, it gives the people in the township an idea of what these committees are doing as well. So I think that's something that I'd like to see implemented.
Anything else on the EDC committee redesign? So we'll go to the next meeting. We'd like to go with you, Ms. Slagle, if you're available.
Absolutely.
We'll bring back some information, talk with them, and we'll go from there. But, you know, maybe it's something for us to discuss with the mayor to devise a plan for all the volunteer committees.
What's the pleasure of the council? Would you like correspondence to the committees asking them to provide a quarterly report or brief? How would you like to handle that?
I'd love to see them come here on TV, get in the spotlight, feel the heat. Need to report in front of the people, you know?
And maybe if we could schedule them for one of the public participation meetings, maybe we could split them up over a couple of 3 months, so that we're not.
Whatever the pleasure of the council.
But I think I'd also like to see a written report.
Yes.
Yeah, the monthly minutes.
Okay.
I just want to turn around, make them face the camera personally.
Deputy Mayor, on the solicitors and the peddlers, that's the third one.
Yeah,
We
I,
had,
for one-
we had a discussion on this. I met with Manager Schlegel, with Sergeant Storo, and actually Bruce Davis, Deputy Manager, and
They look alike.
and Township Clerk Bruce Davis, and Julie from his office, and also Sergeant Storo. And we straightened out one thing, is there already are penalties for violating the failure to get the licenses. We were looking at mostly ice cream vendors, that concern that was brought up by the gentleman here recently, and that has not gone unnoticed by the police department. But the one thing that had gone unnoticed is that there already are penalties, fairly substantial penalties provided for in the general ordinances of Howell Township. Now that the police department is more focusing on those particular penalties as opposed to seeking new ones, I think that'll get that started in the right direction. The other thing that came of that meeting was a further discussion as to, because of the difficulty of literally policing a lot of the peddling or soliciting door to door, that there was a suggestion that we look into an ordinance basically prohibiting a large amount of that activity. And so that would be on for some kind of future discussion. And we are going to continue to meet and discuss that particular ordinance idea. But as for getting additional penalties or penalties, I think that there was the impression somewhere that there were no penalties in the ordinance for violating the no license rule, and that is not the case. There are fairly substantial penalties in our ordinances for it already.
But the penalties they're not high though, are they?
They go up to $2,000 and 90 days in jail.
Right. I did have an opportunity to read this, and I also saw what Freehold does, and I have to agree with the officer that says that we shouldn't impound the trucks because of the product either being the refrigeration being the ice cream or storage for furniture and the responsibility and the liability of that. I agree with that. But what I would like to see is I would like to see us increase the fines so that the first offense be $750, not the range from $250 to $750, from $750, and that the second offense be $2,000 or 90 days in jail. But one of the things I didn't quite understand, Ernie, and maybe you can clarify with me, was what he was saying about the Megan's Law sex offender, and what can you expound on that? Because he had mentioned that when they do their first offense, do we have the legal right to do a background check on them? Because if they're not licensed, then we don't have a background check on them. And if so, when we do the background check, if they are a sex offender or there's something, can we then do jail time? Is that up to the judge to do? I couldn't quite understand that paragraph. Did you read that?
No, you mean if we do a background check and it comes back bad, they're not licensed, but we wouldn't be, I don't believe we would be able to institute jail time.
Let me see if I understand you correctly. If they're unlicensed and they're stopped, and it's found through a records check that they are a sex
under Megan's Law, sex offender.
Sex offender, they would be arrested.
Right.
They would be arrested, but what they do in Freehold is they don't necessarily fine them, even though they're arrested, and they would automatically get jail time. That's the way I interpreted this. That's why I didn't quite. It was a little confusing for me there.
Well, I didn't really go into that in depth with Sergeant Storo, who was the only representative from the police department, representing the police department on this issue. He seemed satisfied with, for now, seeking to enforce the ordinance as it exists and to see if that, with that direction from him, coming from him, as to what kind of penalties they should be seeking, that may be sufficient to address the issue regarding those particular licensed vendors and the ones who are not bothering to get licenses right now. The secondary issue would be whether or not there's anything else we can do to prevent other forms of day-to-day outdoor peddling, that kind of thing.
The way I interpret it was if it was a first offense, they're going to get a $750 fine. If there's a second offense, they're going to get a $2,000 fine. You don't want to put them in jail. You don't want to put an ice cream vendor in jail unless there's a background check and then there's...
Well, I think then at that point, that would be up to the judge.
And that's what it says. We just would make sure, yes. But they have, the way he states it, it's in their ordinance, that it's at the judge's discretion to them put them in jail. But he doesn't want, under a second offense, they would rather that since it's being an ice cream vendor and you have no bad background, that they're automatically going to have to pay the fine and not go to jail. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay.
I want to say it is the council's prerogative. If the council saw fit to create an ordinance more like Freehold's or some other towns that may have a specific penalty for, like we have specific penalties for certain violations in Howell right now. But for this particular infraction, there is no specific penalty, so you go to there's a one catch-all clause in the ordinances where the judge has the ability to fine up to $2,000 and up to 90 days in jail. But if you wanted to create a specific fine and an amount and a higher amount for a second offense or something like that, you can do that. That wasn't the recommendation of the police department after our recent meeting, but because we wanted to give this a period of time to see if enforcing the existing penalties would be sufficient punitively. I think there may have been a miscommunication somewhere along the line that somebody believed that there are no penalties for the violation right now, and there are.
So are you saying that there are penalties? I don't want to state
Yeah,
that.
there's an ordinance, there's a penalty clause in the ordinance, in the general ordinances, that for any ordinance violation, you can be charged or written under that clause, which has a fine up to $2,000. But that does, as the attorney said, it does not stop you from adopting a specific ordinance for a specific purpose with specific fines. You can do that as well. I mean, we have that throughout our code book.
Deputy Mayor, if I might speak. I would strongly suggest this, because if anyone's read, you read the letter from the ice cream vendor and stuff? It's unfortunate that, and I'll tell you in my business, I pay $98,000 every year for liability insurance, workman's comp, and auto insurance. I work around 5 other people that do the same thing as I do. And I can tell you right now, if they pulled 3 of the records, they don't pay anything near what I do. My point is this: what's fair for one and what's law should be across the board. And for someone to get a warning on the first offense is not fair to the person that follows the guidelines and the rules. So first offense, you get a warning. I'm sorry. It's not fair to the other man that is following the law. It's unfair to him. So I think that a first offense of a warning, no, $750 would hurt you, your pocket or your family, right? That's the only 2 ways that, so $750 for the first offense, $2,000 for the second offense, $5,000 for the third offense. It'll make you think next time you decide to pull into Howell Township. It's really not fair to the other business people, it's not fair to anyone. It's the rules. If you can't follow the rules, then you can't play ball in Howell Township. And I think that's how it has to be. That's just, that's black and white.
Councilman Hall?
Deputy Mayor, Bruce, another thing that was brought to our attention besides the ice cream vendors was the furniture trucks.
Right, that's what Mr. Bongiovanni was referring to,
Right,
the other issue.
The furniture trucks, these guys are issued permits by the township.
Yes.
But we have an ordinance that says it's illegal, whether you own a permit or not, for an itinerant vendor to sell furniture from a truck on the side of the road or from a parking lot. That's in the peddlers and solicitors section of the ordinance, of the code
They have
book.
to keep moving every 15 minutes. There's a provision in the ordinance for that. Now, that, of course, is well outdated. But the fact of the matter is, we had discussions at this meeting, and it was our collective feeling that it should be prohibited, period.
I agree.
For furniture trucks to come in, because you have situations like, you have furniture stores in town who are paying taxes or paying rent or whatever it is they're doing.
We have ice cream stores in
We
town.
have ice cream, as long as an ice cream vendor is operating his business properly, you can't and shouldn't, in my opinion, stop that. That's free enterprise. But it's the ones that come in who are pirates, basically, who don't play by the rules, as Mrs. Showmaker said. And I think that the stiff and heavy fines, once the word goes out, 1 or 2 of them get whacked like that, they won't come into town unless they do the right thing, because they're operating without a background check as well when they come in without
That's
being
the key. I mean, operating it properly.
Yeah.
They're coming out of here with big trucks, a few guys at a time. There's no background checks.
Right.
Who cares? They got the $15 peddler's license or the $20 peddler's license.
That's why we said it should be prohibited.
Huh?
Right, and Mrs. Dalton just made the comment of, well, stores sell ice cream. Right, but the guy who's selling ice cream out of the truck that's following the rules is purchasing a license and paying taxes here. A guy who's selling furniture off a truck that drives up and down the street isn't paying his taxes. He's not paying any business usage fees like every business in the town is. If you have a problem with a piece of furniture that you buy at a business in the town, you call that store and say, hey, I have a problem. Generally, it gets taken care of. If you buy it off a truck out of someplace from North Carolina, good luck.
You own it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know when we got into the business of, I'm just concerned that we are singling out a particular type of business. If we want to pass an ordinance that says anybody peddling anything needs a background check, I'm fine with that. I'm just concerned when we start singling out individual, I can tell you, I have only had one experience where a furniture truck drove down my street. And they were very polite, and I asked them if they had a permit, and they showed it to me. It was valid. And several of the people who were at my home looked at what they had. It took all of 10 minutes, and they left. And there was no, big, fallout from it. So I just don't, I don't know if we start regulating every little issue. If there's a peddler's license that all peddlers are entitled to purchase, then it needs to be uniform, in my opinion.
Well, I think one of the other issues, too, is, and we did it, well, the previous council did it when they passed the home office ordinance, was you could have a UPS truck at your house. You can't have tractor trailers driving up and down your streets because a lot of these streets weren't made for it.
Right.
Wires are hanging low, everything else. So I haven't seen a furniture guy come around in a UPS truck. I see him generally in 45-foot tractor trailers. So.
Well, the issue is also the type of commerce is, on the one hand, it's not the same as a delivery truck. It's not a delivery where you pick up something in the store. It's sales from vehicles in transit. And the issue was whether or not that may be a legitimate form of enterprise, but I'm not sure that you have to have that as a permitted enterprise in your town. And that was really what we were talking about, as having it as being, prohibited sales, just the way, for example, we have an ordinance that says you can't have outdoor sales of goods.
Streets, sidewalk sales.
Yeah, you can't. So you see these
Yes,
trucks
you
are
can.
sometimes, they have an exception for stores.
4 to 5 a year, you can get a
Right.
permit.
For stores. But you can't, for example, have one of these trucks unload furniture on somebody's property and
I would
say,
think, if possible, I'd like to see the backup on what we have on our books now. It would help me in
I agree.
formulating a decision on
I agree.
whether we should do anything, shouldn't do anything. I mean, you have some excellent backup here that was good fuel for thought, but it's not enough to form a decision. So I would love to, if possible, sometimes in a package, have that backup and.
I agree. And we could-
Maybe have this discussion again while the facts are there right in front of us, what we have on our books and what should be changed. Everybody agree?
One last quick comment in respect to Ms. Dalton's comment about singling out a business, perhaps, and I'm going to strongly suggest that we do increase our fines. That's one thing that I think we should do. But perhaps, so as not to single out any business, maybe we could limit the size of the package car, and that we're not singling out anyone then. Like for, you could go by, like UPS, I used to work for UPS, so there was different size package cars. So maybe we could, in our ordinance, set specific guidelines onto the sides of the package car or trucks that we allow to peddle in our community, which is not going to single out anybody. That's going to be a generalization. However, it's also going to limit us to, just like that's what our ordinance is to do, without being sites or business selective. Does that sound feasible?
I think you have to be careful because there are always unintended consequences unless you're very
Correct.
precise. For example, an ordinance saying that you don't want to have door-to-door soliciting because you're thinking about it in terms of a truck pulling up with furniture, might prevent a person who goes door-to-door selling insurance, life insurance, or real estate. I'm not sure if they're allowed to knock on your doors, but under their own industries. But certain forms of commerce that are generally recognized as not creating public hazards or hazards to, con man or that kind of thing, that would be treated differently, I would think.
Right.
So that would be the reason why we were discussing what could be prohibited and what could not be prohibited.
I also wanted to mention that the Ordinance Review Committee is working on a fee schedule and increasing of fees, increasing of fines, and getting them all in one place in our ordinance book that will be easily found. So this may be something also that if you want to talk about or make a recommendation for an increase in fines, then we can pass it along to them and they can include that in their work that they're doing.
Well, first I'd like to see what they all are.
As well as amending the ordinance.
I'd like to see what they all are.
Nope, not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have a list of all of them. I think it'd be great to sit down with the Ordinance Review Committee and the Finance Review Committee and see them all first.
Well, that's the problem, that the fees, that's one of the
They're all over the
problems.
place.
And in the ordinance book, the fees are throughout the book.
Yeah.
So it's a daunting task to go page by page to find each individual fee, whether it's an engineering or a fine or a...
So who will attack that daunting task? as
The
you call
Ordinance
it?
Review Committee has started. I have passed on to them, I was doing that as the deputy manager and passed it over to the Ordinance Review Committee, and they are working on it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anything else on that?
No.
No?
Hearing of citizens.
That's it. I'll close that portion of the meeting. We'll open up to the hearing of the citizens.
I would never do that to you.
Order over there to my left, please.
This is Dalton.
Somebody Oprah that note.
Who's this guy? Abraham Maggot. Come on up, Abe.
Wonderful night, by the way.
It's my anniversary.
Stop it. Don't worry about me. We'll be done with that.
Yes, I'm Abe Magid, 89 Mariners Cove, Howell, wonderful place to live, absolutely. I'm very happy, thrilled, and delighted tonight
Love those ideas, Dave.
because we have an employee, public servant in this Howell Township that is the finest, dedicated person. I've had a lot of careers. I worked for 25 years with a private corporation, had my own business for a lot of years. So I recognize a combination of excellent quality. Her name is Helene Schagel. Now, yes, very definitely. We are very, very, very lucky to have this wonderful public servant here, serving us. Now, I say this for several reasons.
You got 3 minutes worth of reasons left, Abe.
No, I have 3.5 minutes.
Excuse me, Deputy
Check your
Mayor,
watch.
I believe he has about 20 minutes.
Check your watch.
Hold on, Abe, the trees must be gone from behind your house, aren't they?
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
I'm talking of something very important that we recognize it. It's not a question of a bird in the hand is two in the bush or, cliches like that. There's something very practical here. These several times, the last meeting, which was September 18th, which I well remember happens to be my wife's birthday, I came down here on an item which Mr. Howell has put the spotlight on momentarily, but that's not what I'm talking about. I've seen how this lady answers questions directly, immediately, fully, and takes hold. I saw it at that meeting, and I've seen it here tonight. Now, of course, I was absolutely dumbfounded, and delightfully so. I said I was here on September 18th. On the 19th, one day later, I received a call. Actually, my cat, named Marcel, a lucky cat, and I was sitting down for lunch. He eats many lunches, I eat one, but we sit down together. My wife's the breadwinner.
Enough for your cat?
My wife's the breadwinner, or she would be there too. She has a PhD, top of a science department, high school stuff, so she's busy. I'm home with the cat. That's fine. Received a call because the mayor, on the 18th, said to Mr. Schlegel, he'd like her to take hold of this problem of fallen trees. And when Mrs. Schlegel called me, in a wonderful soft voice, which is delightful,
Abe, her husband.
she said to me,
Mr. Schlegel's in the back over there.
Mr. Schlegel is here. And
Mr. Schlegel's moving up.
Mr. Schlegel tonight will have to take second fiddle the way I do, most of the time, and happily so, in my marriage, at times, selectively, and wisely so. And she called and she said, and here were her exact words, this morning I met with the township engineer, Lyndon Ziato, and with the public works head, Jeff Kramer, and here's the key words, it's all worked out. This is like miracle of Fatima. I mean, I have to say, am I dreaming? No, I'm not dreaming. I heard it. So right away, being totally stunned, I said, well, you know, what about the equipment, this and that? I've been told all kinds. She says, no, a date's been set. It will be done by October the 15th. Will be. She didn't say, well, most likely, blah, 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 blah. Will be done. Right now, she is our interim township manager. She was a deputy township manager. A little bird told me, and by the way, she's been living here for almost a quarter of a century. She's been working for the benefit of this township in one capacity or another for 19, 20 years, many, many years. Very familiar with everything that's going on here. Not, as I might say, not putting the kibosh on anybody, but I understand in the last 20 years, we've had something like 10 township managers. And they come from here, a lot of credentials, blah, 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 and then the career's a little better, boom, they're gone. That's not Mr. Schlegel.
How much you pay him?
No, I talk from the heart.
Abe, what percentage you getting?
On the heart.
Abe, you're an agent.
From the heart. No, I'll tell you, you know the commercial we watch? You know, somebody, she's priceless. You don't put $1 sign on her.
That's a strike against her, eh?
What's a strike against her? This is great. This is great. And by the way, I want to say this, okay? Just very quickly.
You don't do nothing quickly.
When I went to work, I was discharged on May the 8th, on a Thursday, from the military. On that Monday, I went to work for ITT. I hunted up the job while I was still in service, but we'll forget about that. And you know what I found at ITT? At that time, in 1946, I found there were engineers, been with the company like when radio was founded, 20 years ago. Times changed. By the time I left, and by the way, I left under the best of circumstances, which was, they loved me, I got a kiss on each cheek, and everything is great, and so on and so on. But with 200,000 people, they couldn't give me enough of a raise, even though I had a big title and stuff like that. And so I went into business for myself because I had to raise a family. We'll forget about that. What I'm saying, times change. I put a great mark on a person who's dedicated. You talk about dedicated, right? I said we've had 10 township managers. I'm not putting the kibosh on any one of them. But if they see an opportunity, so long, Charlie, and off they go. We don't have that here. I highly recommend that we take a little of that white out and take out the word interim and put township manager, because we got a bird in the hand here, which is a jewel, and I want to see her, and not because I was helped for the trees. The point is, her Her actions were immediate and definite. Okay, it's a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Maggot. Thank you very much.
Brother.
Next.
Abe, do you highly recommend or highly? Next, Ms. Lorraine, please, come on. Hey, you just made my day.
Vince Lariah, 56C, The Villages. Primarily, I'm here on regarding one of the resolutions that was pulled, the 9A, the 0747 amended language, Villages thoroughfare maintenance. What's that about?
We're not going to discuss it because it's still within the threatened litigation. So we decided, we are in discussion actually with your attorney.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we don't want to discuss it. We'd rather you didn't discuss it either.
Ms.
Well,
Lorraine?
let me tell you where I'm coming from. It's
Up
budget.
to you, though. That's up to you, though.
Yeah, it's budget time for us, and we have to know what's coming down the pike. This is an indication that there's something going on, and we want to be ready for it. Okay, now, that's that. Volunteer committees. I endorse the idea of committees presenting their work on camera, if you will. Most of the committees that I'm familiar with are idea groups. And the input that you get from 5, 6, 8, 10 people is nothing to what you get from the input of 50,000 people. So I strongly endorse the idea of those periodic presentations. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Mayor, Mrs. Schlegel, if the council does decide, and I think that we're leaning that way, to have these individual committees give us a quarterly report at a public participation meeting, could the committees that are going to be reporting that evening be listed both on the Channel 77 on the Viewer's Guide so people know, hey, look, I want to see what this group is talking about?
I don't think that would be an issue, absolutely.
Okay.
So we would have them on as a presentation, yeah, they would be on the agenda.
Right, okay.
Mr. Maggot, how do you feel about that answer?
She's been absolutely the quintessence of excellence every time she spoke, and I listened.
Mr. Tantillo?
Hey, nobody could follow your act.
Well, you bet.
Not an act, it's from the heart.
Mr. Schlegel, you better hope it doesn't rain for the next 14 days and you can't get those trees out. Boy, are you in big trouble on the 16th.
Vinny Tantillo, Casino Drive. Abe, your 20 minutes is up. What can I say about Helene? Never mind. There's two things I want to talk about. One thing is, a few weeks back, I came up and I asked for somebody to recognize Harvey Morrell, and I want to thank the council, the mayor, the board, Helene Schlegel, all yous from the bottom of my heart, because you're really done a justice to that man. They're not here tonight, but for Harvey and his wife and the children, they really, really were touched, very much so. The people that weren't there, it's a shame you weren't there because it was a beautiful ceremony. Helene and the council came together, and Chief Carter, they just done a wonderful job. The building is now called Harvey Morrell Jr. Criminal Justice Building. And I want to thank the police department, which nobody did, the color guard, and all the police officers that were off duty that stood at attention for an hour and a half and didn't move. I looked around, I saw Harvey's wife and children standing there with their chest out. I mean, they were prouder than hell, and as I was. And again, I want to thank you very much, Helene, especially you, for what you did, for your speech that you made, Bob, and got a lot of laughs, Danny Massa, and not to leave anyone out, Mayor DeBella done a beautiful job reading his biography on Harvey Morel, and I got to give him credit for that. I always said he had a golden tongue, and he done a great job. Again, thank you very much, and I have a lot of friends in this town. Harvey and I have been here over 4 decades, but we have a lot of friends, and I hope you all live forever. All my friends, and I hope I live to be 1,000 so that I can keep friends like you. But as far as Harvey Morel, it'll take 1,000 years to find somebody like him. Again, thank you very much. Second thing I want to go for is, you were talking about solicitors and peddlers and licenses and stuff. Seems to me something's really being overlooked here. And all week I've been looking at this stuff. And I'm looking at people going into Home Depot and buying chainsaws, coming out, going in their pickup truck, and all of a sudden they're a tree expert. They're out there cutting trees down for a living. It's all cash work. They got no insurance of any kind. And then I look in the paper, I see in Elizabeth, another guy was pulled into a chipper and killed. Jackson, I think it was a week and a half ago, a homeowner was standing there, and the guy's stump grinder pulled him in and done a number on him. Anybody that's a professional tree expert, and he's in business and he'd have a permit, he'd have insurance, he'd know not to have anybody near that stump grinder or a chipper. It's very simple. You walk over to somebody and you say, look, for insurance purposes, you can't be here. Put something up. Put a ribbon up around it like the police do when there's a car accident or something. You got lunch wagons, you got ice cream trucks, seafood trucks that come in my driveway trying to sell seafood. They don't have a permit. And I ask them for it, and as soon as I ask them for it, they leave. This is food. This is stuff you're putting in people's stomach. You're going to kill somebody. They all should be licensed, especially these lawn care guys and these tree removal guys. They don't have licenses. They don't have permits. Let's not worry about just the ice cream vendor. I mean, there's everyone, lunch wagons. They don't have permits. They drive through with trucks that are falling apart. They're really roach coaches. I mean, it's a fact. And it bothers me. The tree removal, I see them all over. They're running businesses out of their yards, or they go and buy a trailer and a couple of chainsaws and a lawnmower, and they're in business. My 20 minutes ain't up. I just like something done, if it's going to be done for ice cream vendors, do it for all of them. But these tree guys, it's really a concern of mine. If you look around, you're going to see kids running around these chippers. You're going to see kids running around with stump grinders. And it's dangerous. Once you get grabbed by it, you're done. You ain't coming out. I mean, it's taking you in and killing you. That's all I got to say.
Deputy Mayor, if I could real quick. Mr. Schlegel, I believe a couple of the professions that Mr. Tantillo was speaking about, the tree guys, the lawn care guys, I believe they're required to be licensed under the home improvement contractor laws of the state of New Jersey, and they have to have that number. Oh, yeah. They have to have that. It's a 13 BVH number that has to be put on the side of the truck. And it's supposed to be in all of their advertisements, their cards, everything else, which guarantees that to get the license from the state, that they had a background check done, and that they also have a minimum $500,000 liability insurance. As far as the roach coaches that Mr. Tantillo spoke about, aren't they licensed by the county boards of health as well as the individual township boards of health, if a township has a board of health?
Yes, but we use Monmouth County.
Right, so we use the
Right.
county, so, but they would have to have that Monmouth County
That's
sign hanging, you know, they're a satisfactory, whatever, just like in a regular restaurant. They would have that hanging in the truck.
Yes.
Okay.
Donald Smith?
Oh, excuse me, can I just make one comment on what Mr. Gentile had to say? Regarding the building dedication, I just want to say that it was an honor for us to work on the building dedication for Chief and Mayor Morrell. but I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the work that my staff and the clerk staff did to make that happen. Especially, I need to mention Bruce Davis, who really put a lot of time into organizing the program, as well as his staff member, Mary Beth and Jill Tripodi. So I think that needed to be said.
Yeah, I don't think anybody means to slight any group or person in particular. It was an all-around great effort. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining bright. A man and his family, I think, were honored. Not just a man, his family, for the dedication and service to Howell Township. I was pretty taken back. When I spoke about how I felt about my police chief in the town I grew up in. He had come from the same police force as Harvey Morrell 36 years ago. And when it was first mentioned to me months ago, I was driving around Howell thinking about Tommy Wallace, who was the first police chief of Manalapan at the same time. They both left Aberdeen at the same time. Chief Wallace came to Manalapan and Harvey came here. And I don't know Mr. Morrell on that much of a personal level. I didn't know what to call him that day. I had asked my mother, should I call him Chief, should I call him Mayor, should I call him Mr. Morrell or Harvey? She tapped me on the back of the head to call him Mr. Morrell. But, you know, I was thinking about it, and when I was speaking, I spoke about how Tommy Wallace, the chief of Manalapan, how I really admired and respected him. You know, from when I was like 10, 11 years old till I was, 30, he was the police chief of Manalapan. And I didn't know that he was there to honor his fellow police officer. He was a patrolman back in 1957. I didn't know he was there. I was pretty taken back. If I knew he was there, I told him I wouldn't have said nothing. But it's really how I felt, and I think a lot of people from Howell Township feel that way about Harvey Morrell, and I think it was just a great day, and I love seeing somebody on it who's still with us.
Well, for the people that don't know, I didn't say it, but I should have. September 29th is now officially, Lincoln's got his day, Washington's got his day, Martin Luther King even got a day. September 29th is Harvey Morrell Jr. official day. Every
In
year.
Howell Township, forever.
Do we get that off?
If it's a Saturday or Sunday, if it's Saturday or Sunday, you're off. I believe I'll be golfing every September 29th from here on out, though. Mr. Smith, if you would.
Don Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. First thing, Pauline would like me to thank the parks personnel, Parks and Grounds, recreation personnel, and the police of Howell Township for the excellent service they provided the people on Howell Day. I particularly was impressed about how the parks personnel and the police helped elderly people and infirm and some handicapped people at where they boarded the bus. The Historical Society, as you know, was set up at the old schoolhouse, which was one of the pickup points and drop-off points for the people. And I think the police really outdid themselves, and I heard a lot of comments from people there, not even all being Howell residents, but they were impressed that the police were making such a presence, not in a legal fashion, but in helping the people. And it really showed that the police are our friends and not just our law enforcement people. And I think it sort of showed that their overtime was well worth it. So I thank you all for that.
Thanks for the dig, Don.
I don't think it was a dig to you. The second thing I want to address, and this just hit me between the eyes tonight, and this is an ordinance that you have on that is going to be introduced later this month, and that is on the riparian buffer. Now, it's interesting that I had been asked by the Environmental Commission Friday night to contact Helene and see if we can get something done with our riparian and buffer ordinance to bring it into compliance. For the last, God knows how many years, we've been trying to get the clause into the buffer ordinance that would actually make it legal and binding. You have to be able to give relief to make any ordinance binding. It's also interesting that on Friday night, I met with an individual, a representative from the American Littoral Society, who was impressed by our buffer ordinance, understands our concern about its legality, and is going to run it by their legal staff. It seems that they have an extensive legal staff that recently just managed to convince the DEP to put the Toms River into Category 1. I don't want to belabor the issue, but I got to give you a little bit of a rundown. This 300-foot buffer ordinance that we established was really started out of the Planning Board, was picked up by the Environmental Commission, and actually hammered out through Monmouth County Planning Board and the Township Attorney at that time, Mr. Gannon. The idea behind this was that the DEP had yet to enact the Category 1 classification. So we wanted something to back up our stream protection until the state did that. At that time, we felt that the buffer ordinance of the township could be modified then just to cover any streams that weren't protected. We hoped that they would all come under the protection. Unfortunately, the DEP has got a strange way of looking at the Manasquan River. They say that's not our drinking water because it doesn't go into the reservoir. Well, I hate to point out, but it does. It's pumped into the reservoir. They say, oh, but that's not the same. So you can't make all of the Manasquan Category 1. Then one of our members from the commission, Bobby Sue Bowers, called to speak to the woman in charge, who turns out that was very indignant, and said, well, we can't change the rules for Howell Township, and that there was no interest in the upper portions of the Manasquan going into Category 1 when the rule was imposed by the DEP years ago. Well, that's not true, because there were two resolutions from the governing body back then. There were resolutions from the Planning Board, and there were resolutions from the Environmental Commission. I don't know what more they needed. What they seem to fail to realize is that the water from the Manasquan is treated and not necessarily pumped into the reservoir first. Our chairman recently met with the New Jersey Department of, well, no, not Department, the New Jersey Water Authority. And he was told they're so concerned because at times of high rainfall, the sedimentation in that river is so bad that they can't treat water. They can't even pump it into the reservoir, let alone treat it for immediate use. Also, they're picking up a lot of iron from the high flow. A lot of Howell's land, as you know, is loaded with iron. And it turns it turns the water red, and they can't pump it into the reservoir. They have to treat that water directly and send it on its way as potable water. We just can't get the DEP to understand. So we are really at the mercy of our ordinance, and this throws out the protection of north of West Farms Road, because that is not Category 1. The New Jersey Water Authority is in the process of submitting a report to the DEP, how they're so dependent upon Howell's 300-foot ordinance, because it's the only thing they figure they have going for them. since the DEP, New Jersey Water Authority.
New Jersey Water
They own
Authority,
the Manasquan Reservoir.
New Jersey Water Authority is preparing,
They're preparing a report to send to the DEP. And I'm sure you're going to hear from them when this ordinance comes for public hearing, because we intend to reach out to the American Littoral Society, Mr. Taylor, Steve Taylor from the Manasquan Watershed Authority. There's others, New Jersey Water Authority, as I said. We'll reach out for them. We need all the help we can get. But this scraps the whole ordinance without trying to give any coverage. This only mirrors the Category 1. This doesn't cover any areas that are not Category 1. And we were assured at the time of passage of that ordinance that it was defensible with the DEP. They would support it because we would work it into our storm water management plan. Well, that hasn't happened. The ordinance was just there and forgotten about. And we've had a lot of developers comply with the ordinance. Ashley Furniture, for example, no problem. They're honoring the 300-foot buffer requirement, even though it's not a Category 1 waterway.
what would you suggest happen here, Mr. Smith?
I would like somebody with the knowledge of the law to look into how we can make those waterways that are not Category 1 fit into the 300-foot riparian buffer. I know we have to be able to provide relief under a hardship. That's always been, we knew that the buffer was always in jeopardy without that. And I met with Mr. Zernecki, it's well over a year ago, to try and get the ordinance. In fact, I think
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, Mr. Bongiovanni was there too.
Mrs. Schlegel doesn't like that.
It's okay.
But
And Abe is sitting behind you.
But nothing ever came of it. The Environmental Commission made formal comments last February. And then I got a call from our secretary wondering whatever happened to our comments. Well, we made them.
Can I make a suggestion?
I would like you to.
Why don't I call Mr. Smith, we'll get together, and besides the fact I'll look through in files and see if I can find anything regarding the comments that were made. But in the meantime, why don't we sit down with whoever you think is necessary, go over those things, and possibly then along with Mr. Bongiovanni, of course, and then we can perhaps amend this to include that verbiage.
Right,
If
that's
it's
what I was
allowable. If it's
hoping could be
allowable.
done. The only thing I would ask...
Obviously, this is the first I'm hearing that, okay? So I would appreciate the opportunity to get it in there so that we can get it done right.
Do we have the judge's decision, the docket number, and is there a way we could get a copy of that?
It wasn't a decision. There was a consent order signed by Mr. Gannon stating that we would repeal this ordinance and adopt a new ordinance. It was put on the record that the ordinance would comply with state regulations and state mandates. Beyond that, there is some freedom to do what you want. I've had extensive discussions with our current planner, and we first, after our meeting in the late winter, we had a discussion with our planner, and he had a few suggestions on how to change the ordinance, but every time we looked at it again and again, the one that was designed by Mr. Newcomb, it just seems like you can't engraft on the protections to prevent us from being sued again onto that particular ordinance. So,
Mike.
So it was basically decided not to scrap that ordinance, but to really pare it down and to take out the stuff about the stormwater management. So that's where we are right now, and it's partly because we have a comment.
Well, can we do it with the manager, as asked, to sit down and have a meeting? Let's Well, let's look at this.
I'd have no problem with
Do you
that.
have a environmental commission meeting Friday by any chance?
No, they have one on
Not
the
this
12th.
Friday, the following Friday.
Okay, because what I was going to do is ask that, maybe we get that recommend,
Maybe
you know,
you
I
go
don't
to
know
that.
if you need to, if you think it would behoove you to have the environmental commission meeting and then send a recommendation, or we can certainly meet next week prior to the meeting, that would be
Yeah.
your decision. What you think would be
I,
the better way to go?
I was, this is the first I've seen it,
I
as you
know.
know, tonight.
Yeah.
And there are a number of people that I want to run this by.
Mr. Smith, run them by him on somebody else's time. I gotta be fair here.
Okay, but I'll try and get the county,
Make a comment.
the girl that took over Tom Keller's place on the Monmouth County Planning Board, who is the environmental
Okay.
angle of the board, should be of some help, too. I
Okay.
know Tom Keller's was instrumental in
Well, then
drafting the original.
Why don't you contact me when you think it's appropriate time to sit down
Okay,
and
when I
and
can
who the appropriate
get,
parties
get enough
are.
people together. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Councilwoman Showmaker would like to add something.
Real quick, one of the comments that Dawn made is, when we first started the riparian buffer, we weren't being regulated, we weren't mandated to follow the stormwater regulations, so that's something that has changed. And that's why I think now we can address those issues in the riparian buffer with, and I'm not sure, Ernie, you're going to know better than I, but I am going to, Helene, go back to see if I have my notes, because I have extensive notes from when this came about the first time. I just have to see if I still have them, because it was a long time.
And like I said, we'll sit down with the appropriate parties. We'll get the engineer involved and
Yeah, 'cause our understanding at the time was that if this were made a part of our stormwater management plan, which is county and state controlled, that would give it the standing.
And that'll give an opportunity for Mr. Bongiovanni to look into the legal side and whether it would be able to hold up under a lawsuit.
We all got the takeaways, let's go.
And Mr. Smith, I'm sure Mr. Maga will tell you once Mrs. Schlegel takes hold of something, because you will be happy, overjoyed, and overwhelmed.
Well, she did a good job on it, on our ANJAC grant, so.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, is that it? That everybody?
Yeah. I want to add something very useful for you.
No.
And I add it to next meeting.
Close the session.
Barbara? Mrs. Dixler, I'd like to close this. You would like to speak? Name and address, please.
Barbara, Howell Township. Regarding furniture trucks, I see them sometimes on Saturday and Sunday on Route 9. They just pull in, park, sell stuff out of the back. I don't think these people have any permits or anything with these big, huge trailer trucks from North Carolina. Can our police be alerted, especially on the weekends? Can anybody put out a directive to sort of tell them to close their doors and move on?
I'm sure they do.
Chief Carter can.
Okay, well, can somebody ask Chief Carter to request the Howell Township Police Department to kind of keep these guys moving out of here? Okay, I have to ask you, when I come to, sometimes to get stuff at the planning board, a zoning board, and I pay for maps and reports from engineers and stuff, why has the price gone from 25 cents a copy to 75 cents a copy?
I guess toner, but
Well, that's a little absurd, because sometimes you wind up paying a lot of money now.
It's 25 cents a page for pages 1 through 10, 50 cents a page for pages 11 through 20, and 75 cents a page every page thereafter.
I'm sorry, but I think the last time I did, I think I paid
That's
16
state,
something. No, they said now it's
It is reversed.
75,
It's 75, 50, and 25.
75 from 1 to 10?
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Price
When
goes-
when did that take place?
I don't know, 20 years ago.
No, it didn't, because I used to pay 25 cents a copy.
Yes, but the same law is the same law.
Hold
The only
on.
thing that's changed is the
has that
cost.
yeah, I got the feeling we need to go for back fees for Mrs. Dixell here.
No, it's not the point, I just think it's not fair.
Take hold
It
of
winds
that.
up to be very expensive, because I've very recently paid 25 cents a copy.
It's a state
Oh.
law, though.
Yeah.
It is a state law.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
We don't make that, it's
Okay,
state does
didn't
that.
realize it.
We'll work on it.
Didn't realize it. Regarding the traffic light that's supposed to have been there on County Road 524 and Fairfield Road. You have a light going on 524A instead of, ahead of, the county is putting a road, because you voted on it a week ago. You're putting a light now on the council voted on something that the county's doing on a light on 524A and
Yeah, I think,
524A and,
is that a light there at 520?
It's on 520, 524, and
Squawk?
524A.
Squonkam Yellowbrook.
Right,
Right
Okay.
there, where the light's going, right by our house.
That's a light?
yes.
I didn't
Okay.
know there was a light coming.
I thought they were just realigning the intersection.
They're realigning the intersection, which includes the light,
There was a light. Now,
and replacing the bridge.
there?
Now, because I spoke to somebody who said they didn't really need a light there. The light is supposed to go on County Road 524 and Fairfield Road. That was supposed to have been there. They were supposed to have gotten
Keep it down the back, please.
some homeowner to give up a piece of his property or buy a piece of his property or whatever. Reason why I'm saying this, Friday afternoon at 4:30 PM, I got a call from somebody who said there was just an accident with kids out of school, 4:30 in the afternoon, County Road 524 and Fairfield Road. I can't begin to tell everybody, they're tired, people are tired of hearing me say, we've got to protect our kids in these schools. We've got 6 schools between County Road 524 and County Road 524A and several thousand children. We have to protect these kids on the roads. Somebody, please put a light under the county. I don't care what you do, how you do it. I left a message for Joe Ettore, who's the county engineer. 5 seconds after the person called me, I said, I don't care what you do, how you do it, just get somebody out there. Hang a blinking light, hang something, but please somebody contact the county.
Deputy Mayor, if I can comment. Barbara, what you're missing, though, is it's going to stop the traffic. We live on that road. In the morning, for me to get out of my driveway, my road, sometimes it takes me 20 minutes to make a left turn.
What are you going to do when this 1,000
But you're not taking into account now, it's probably a mile, maybe even less than a mile from Fairfield to where the light is. So that is going to stop that influx of constant traffic coming down there where people cannot turn.
But there's a contract with this homeowner, there's a contract between the Board of Ed and the county to put this light up.
On the green, with a little green house that sits right on the corner? Their house almost sits on the road? Or are they going to take the house?
I don't know, but there's a contract.
That's where there's some issues, but.
There is a contract.
We can get a hold of let's get a hold of the Board of Education. Let's see what we can find out, because it has been in the works for a couple of years.
Couple of years.
Okay, it does have something to do with property things.
I know that, but the thing is, our kids, we just got to keep our kids safe. Okay, another thing is, how did we do with the vote over at Freehold Regional when they rezone? How did we do with that? I went there after you asked me to go there that night, and I did go. I was the only one there with several upset parents. And
Barbara, Mr. Castro's in the back, and I know we received an email from him.
Well, I was the only one there that night.
I don't believe they're redistricting at this time.
Well, the only thing I said to them was, several years ago, when we did it then, our kids were them. And they didn't want us, and our kids had to make special application to every high school they wanted to go to. They had to have a special interview, and they had to hope that they didn't get refused. You remember that, Cindy? I remember that very well. I just said to Dr. Wasser, I said, I don't care what you people do now, just I'm begging you, keep it fair. Our children deserve the same education and equality as every kid in this district. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Thank you for going and representing Howell Township. I do appreciate it.
You asked me to go, and I went.
I did.
I said, just keep it fair. I'm begging you, keep it fair.
Thank you very much.
Now,
I read that, if I could just for a minute, I read the report that Mr. Nicastro submitted, and I believe that at one point, they said that the high school was only at 78%, and that there was, all right, and that Howell High School still has plenty of seats available at lunch, and I could tell you that's an outright lie. And I'm telling you right now, whoever said it is not telling the truth, because my daughter goes to that school, and she has to take turns sitting down so that they can eat.
I believe this is a discussion that can really wait until, I believe,
Dr. Wasser.
November 27th, Dr. Wasser will be attending our meeting.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
But they did say that they don't certify the enrollment until the middle of October.
They can't.
They can't certify the enrollment.
Which is good, so by the time he comes, he's going to have all the answers for you, and then you can really,
Well, that's,
Like I said, I went because I was asked to
I'm
go.
counting on you, Barbara.
Barbara, November.
You get my reports all the time. You get
November
everything I-
27th.
That's tentative, but I'll let you know.
November
once it's confirmed.
27th, Barbara.
Next.
Here?
Yes.
Okay. And the lady from Marlboro that night had said that there were several hundred empty seats in Marlboro. The borough has several hundred empty seats. So, and why do we get impacted? Okay, that's that. One thing I know I need to ask you, I'm looking at 40A:9-22.19, Establishment of Municipal Ethics Board. Each municipality of the state may, by ordinance, establish a municipal ethics board consisting of 6 members who are residents of the municipality, at least 2 of them who shall be public members. Now, this can be done. You can look at this, please write these numbers down. 40A:9-22.19, 40A:9-22-20, 40A:9-22-21, and then 22. This is all the establishment of a local municipal ethics board. It can be done. Please research it. It can be done. I still would like to see it done.
Barbara, I don't think
Or replaced.
anybody...
She was just leaving, bro. What you got?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody
I
ever...
beg your pardon, sir. I was just about to tell you that you were doing a very nice job tonight, but I'll take that back.
I don't think anybody ever said that it couldn't be done. It actually, there was an ethics board here.
Yes, and...
We said we wanted
So-
to bring it back, and we are researching
Okay,
it. Barbara,
fine,
I have-
and it was decimated the first night that the present mayor got into office.
Quick question for you, Barbara, because this is not really not time we're supposed to comment, but do you really think our community is that unethical that we need to have an ethics board?
But there
in
was
our
here for,
community?
for many, many years, that would be nice to have it back. In case anybody in this community has anything to say,
But there's a board you can go to, Barbara.
where?
There's a state board.
No, they won't.
I don't exactly...
I don't agree with you.
And the only other-
I will rest right now from this, but I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, Mr. Dixell, at all on this one. But I don't feel like getting to debate at this
I'm
moment.
not gonna debate
Your
anybody
time is
anything.
up. My time is up, this council's
Correct.
time is up.
And as far as the OEM building
Your
goes,
time is up, my time is up.
I understand that. As far as the OEM building goes,
One more time.
they knew they were leaving the building, they knew they were getting a new building, they should have taken account, they should have kept the maintenance of the building up and not let it go to hell. So,
Again, Barbara, with the
Goodbye.
OEM building, again.
Barbara.
They're not responsible to maintain the
No.
building.
Whatever.
We
It's our
are.
building.
Barbara,
Okay.
it's the township...
Building-
and Helene, yes,
Yes.
you are doing a fabulous job.
Thank you.
And take the interim off
Thank you,
manager.
Barbara. Thank you.
And so is Bruce, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Motion to adjourn.
I'd like to close the portion of hearing of the citizens. We have a regular meeting Tuesday, October 16th, executive at 6:30, regular session at 7:30. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.